Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the MedTech Impact Podcast, where you get to hear from leaders and innovators who are shaping the future of medical technology. I'm Kyle Cruz.
And I'm Richard Meiklejohn.
And we're your hosts of the show.
So today on the MedTech Impact Podcast, we are delighted to be joined by Ryan Mcnaughton, CEO and co-founder of Primetaz. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Richard. Thanks, Kyle. I'm really excited to be here. Looking forward to the chat today.
Well, we are delighted again to have you on the show. You are part of our current impact cohort 7, our biggest one ever with 19 companies. So delighted to be able to give you the spotlight and, of course, to share what Primetaz is all about. As always, when we start this conversation, we like to frame it for the audience by saying, what is the big problem that Primetaz is looking to solve?
Yeah, thanks, Richard. I think to sum it up succinctly as possible, the biggest problem that Primetaz is working on is MRI performance. And we're taking the angle of trying to make MRIs faster so that you can improve patient throughput in hospitals and really mitigate scheduling backlogs that are plaguing healthcare in the United States.
So this is something we're obviously hearing more and more about. You've got this big capital equipment that is often either underutilized or just can't be utilized enough because of the volume for the demand. And again, post-pandemic, we're seeing an ever-increasing demand in the need for this type of equipment. You know, when you look at that today, what sort of challenges are you seeing specifically that you're focusing on?
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, especially globally, we're continuing to have patients and a population that's continuing to age as well. So the demand will just continue to grow. And the number in the United States, the number of people who need an MRI is over 30 million, and we still can't keep up. There's backlogs up to 4 weeks and greater in certain areas. I was actually reading that in Canada, it can take up to a year sometimes to have an outpatient MRI. And so we're really trying to build accessories to the scanner. We don't want to change the clinical standard. And we want to use these accessories to improve the speed of the exam. And so by shortening the time it takes for the patient to be in there, you can improve the overall throughput, get people in and out of the scanner faster, which will then allow you to schedule your exam sooner.
But Kyle, Ryan's teasing us a little bit with the solution here.
Yeah, well, especially Richard, because I was just thinking of, these big pieces of capital equipment. I mean, obviously, MRI machines, they're so big and they're sophisticated, they're very expensive, right? But then, Ryan, you started talking about accessories. So tell us more about what your solution, what your product looks like.
Yeah, we're working on what we like to call a metamaterial technology. I call it the MetaPad, trademark not pending. But you could think of it as a yoga mat, as something to relate to in your daily life. And we're really using this metamaterial technology to create, and I really mean this, an MRI accessory. Picture of, a digital camera. And instead of changing out the lens or buying a new camera, i.e. buying a new MRI machine, you could clip something onto the end of the lens, like a UV filter or something else that would allow you to capture more light. That's the way that our MetaPads work. They allow you to improve the performance of the detectors that the MRI scanner is using.
Mm-hmm. And so what happens? I mean, do they just, roll out the MRI bed and lay the pad down and then the patient essentially lays on top?
Yeah, so for anyone listening, if either of you have ever had an MRI, the way that it works is you wait your 4 weeks, you go into your exam time, your appointed time with the physician, and the technician who's at the MRI machine welcomes you, they sign you in, whatever. They take you into the room and they effectively, like you said, Kyle, they lay you on the table and then they electronically push the table into this, what I like to call the giant donut hole of the MRI machine. The only change to this process is, for us, we're working in spine imaging, but instead of them taking you back right away, they would first lay our yoga mat like product along the table of the MRI machine. And then you would simply lay on top of that. And the rest of the process would be exactly the same.
Simple, sounds like super simple, and everyone loves simplicity. Now, what is it about, I guess, and this might be going into a little bit, this might be too proprietary, but what is it about these like materials and the makeup that allows the MRI process to be done faster?
Yeah, so it really comes down to a property in imaging, but specifically with MRI, called signal to noise ratio, which is a nice way of saying the measured signal from the scanner, what the MRI feels from your body versus sort of the background noise. And it's a way to sort of look at the overall image quality. And so the way that our product works is, a metamaterial is a fancy buzzword that means something that's not naturally occurring in nature, that you can engineer in the lab, that has a repetitive structure. And you can tweak the overall geometry of each of these individual structures that elicits these really interesting properties. So for us, when you expose it to a magnetic field, like in an MRI machine, it can focus the magnetic field and really amplify it locally to itself. And when you place that next to a person, the magnetic fields that are experienced by the person in the machine get amplified, which creates greater signal that's being measured by the machine.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Now, is this how durable too, by the way, is this product?
Yeah, so we're exploring a lot of different prototypes right now. I'm sure maybe we'll touch on it later on in terms of exactly what stage we're at. But, you know, the product itself is very simple. It's very thin and flexible polymer, like a plastic film with copper printed along the surface. So for anyone that may be listening to the podcast that's familiar with screen printed or roll-to-roll manufacturing, we're looking at ways that can, be highly deformable and durable without cracking the electronics and anything like that. So very durable, but again, continually innovating and yeah, in the space.
Sure. So a reusable application, probably pretty
Yeah.
simple to even wipe down, after use, to store away. Doesn't sound like it takes up much space. I know my wife's yoga mat certainly doesn't. Throw it in the closet and we're good to go. So I think about everything you just told me here, Ryan and Richard. Obviously Ryan's over here. He's got all the keys here for his go-to-market strategy. Something that I'm always, quite interested in.
Oh yeah, this is like the master key, which is slipping in there so easily. I mean, like the fact that you've got this going into the workflow, it's like a mat that just like easily sits on top of an existing bed. It seems like a really seamless process for anyone who's carrying out this procedure. One thing I wanted to circle back on was you mentioned around spine being a sort of application that you're thinking of focusing on. Was there any particular reasoning for starting with that?
Yeah, it's a great question, Richard. Spine imaging is a high volume exam. I mentioned there's around 30 million plus scans done annually, and spine represents about 15% of the MRI exams that are done, whether it's lumbar, cervical, thoracic. In total, it's 15%. And so it's a pretty sizable number, and they're long exams. They can take upwards of 30 minutes just to have one done. And, with our technology, because of the way it works, direct placement on the table with the patient laying on it, the spine's right there. So it's really easy for us to access and have really meaningful impact right away.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think like having that clear focus is something we always like to see for any company where they've got that sort of first indication or that first use case that they can hone in on. So that makes total sense. I know you're at the stage where you're translating and you're building the prototypes, but can you talk a little bit about if you had some conversations yet with the people who are, controlling these environments?
Yeah, it's funny. When we started this process, we were really interested in building our own detector, if you will, for the MRI scanner. And we learned pretty quickly from talking to some of the major players in, the MRI system manufacturing space that, they didn't really have any interest in altering the way they manufacture their product. And so that allowed us to really utilize what we're good at, which is developing these metamaterial products and create accessory devices. And so that was like the biggest piece of information that really adjusted the way we viewed the go-to-market. And it's advantageous for us because it allows us not to have to plug into the MRI scanner. So our yoga mat product, our MetaPad, is unpowered in a sense. It doesn't plug into the scanner, and it works in a way that allows it to be compatible with scanners across different brands. So for example, if you're a hospital at Boston Medical Center who uses Philips, it would work. If you're a hospital at MGH or Brigham and Women's, who uses Siemens, it would work. We rely on the physics of the scanner, not the proprietary nature of what we're trying to plug into, because we don't have a plug.
Awesome. Well, again, it seems like you've got all the master key properties the way you can just seamlessly integrate. Kyle, I'm wondering now that this seems like it's got a great foundation, but clearly a little bit of a journey to go on.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like, Ryan. I mean, it sounds like, you might be in these really early kind of development and prototype stages. But I guess tell us, a little bit more about what that regulatory pathway looks like for, a product like yours.
Yeah, so we are an we will be an FDA regulated device. We've had several conversations now with their departments, and we have a stance now where our product should be a class 2 medical device, 510(k) pathway, following the same paths and product codes of the overall MRI scanner itself. The actual principles of the MRI work of our device work the same as the principles of the detectors that they use. We just don't plug into the scanner. And so we're emulating a lot of our regulatory strategy off of those predicates of the actual hardware that's commercial of the MRI scanner itself.
Is that really because now are you able to, take that kind of class 2 pathway because you're really kind of complementing a procedure in a way, and it's not like someone's fully dependent on your product necessarily?
Yeah, so MRI overall is regulated as a class 2 device. So those large scanners themselves, those are all class 2 devices. And I think it comes down to the fact that MRI is a much less invasive form of imaging. MRI itself uses, it's a technical term, but non-ionizing radiation. It uses magnetic fields, which are microwaves, or sorry, radio waves, just like your car radio. And so, the safety, there are, obviously with any FDA regulated device, safety concerns for patients, but they're to a lesser level. And so I think that really motivates the overall class 2 nature of MRI and MRI type devices. Yeah, so as you were saying, it all goes back to our device working with and working sort of in tandem to the overall MRI machine.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And, I know again, it might be a little early, but are you talking to physicians or, whoever would be using your product in the field? Are you talking to them, and maybe what kind of feedback and what are you hearing from them?
Yeah, I mean, the one great thing about the team that we have is one of our co-founders is a radiologist, and so being able to bounce ideas off of him has been instrumental in helping to guide. We're also working with not just clinicians in the area. There's some clinicians from Beth Israel that we've spoken with, but also technologists, the ones who are actually conducting the exam. So when you go in, you are referred to have an MRI exam done by the physician. The one who's actually operating the scanner isn't your radiologist. They're the ones who are reading all of your images and making diagnosis. But the one who's actually conducting the scan, who sets you up in the scanner, who will place our technology underneath you on the table, is what's called an MRI technician or an MRI technologist. And so we've actually started reaching out to some of the people from the international technologist societies in the radiology space to understand their feedback about how their day works, how they would integrate with our device. We say that it integrates seamlessly into the clinical workflow, but to understand really how much extra effort it would take for them for every procedure to place and remove and added steps to their job. And when it comes to saving time in MRI, that's the biggest thing. You might be able to save as much time as you want in terms of the imaging, but if it adds time in the front and back end setup and takedown of the equipment, it may not matter in the long run. And so it's really important to have the feedback of those who operate the scanner to know that you're saving time during the imaging and not making their life harder in the front and back end.
Yeah, and Ryan, does the radiologist or, anyone using the MRI machine, do they have to make any tweaks or adjustment to the machine, or is it as simple as putting the mat down and That's it.
Yeah, it's exactly like you just said there at the end. They take our metapad, our mat, they lay it on the table. They use the same what they call pulse sequences. So you're generating the same contrast of images that the radiologists are used to.
Mm.
The only difference is that before the patient gets there, you'll place our product down on the table, then they'll lay on it. And then when they leave, you'll either pick it up or leave it there for the next person, depending on whether or not the next person's getting their spine imaged.
Sure. I mean, it's pretty interesting, right? Because you talk about how simple the workflow is with your Metapad, but we all know that nothing's always rainbows and butterflies. There are always challenges along the way. And Richard, oh, don't we love to just delve into the challenges?
Well, we do, and it's exactly what I was thinking. I mean, again, the fact this product in principle seems so simplistic. The fact that you have this mat, you can just use it with the existing procedure. It's universally applied to all the different types of machines. But it makes me think about again that, being at this early stage, probably everything seems like a challenge. What to do first, who to connect with, what to ask them. When you think about challenges, Ryan, like what are the sort of the top two or three that jump to mind currently?
Oof, man, you're absolutely right. It's every day is a new challenge at this point. But from a technical standpoint, I mentioned we went with spine because it's a meaningful and easy target area for us for a first indication. Where our technology struggles and we're constantly trying to improve is imaging deeper into the body. Just by the nature of how it works, some of the abdominal imaging may be difficult for us, and so that's something that we're constantly striving to work on. From from a team building standpoint, one of the biggest challenges is finding the right harmony between speaking with the manufacturers of these MRI systems and making sure it works for the clinician. And so there's this balance when you're trying to generate safety data and making sure it works in humans, where you're trying to balance getting the data necessary to make the hospital be okay with you using it and their system, while also generating similar safety data, but safety for the MRI machine itself. And so when I say that, you can go and tell the representative from Philips or Siemens that it's going to work, it's not going to hurt their technology, but they want to know because it's a piece of capital equipment that costs a lot of money. And from the hospital standpoint, they want to make sure that their patients are safe. And so the biggest challenge is making sure you keep all those stakeholders aware of everything that's going on and that you sort of thread the needle in terms of making sure that the technology works for everyone involved.
Yeah, and I guess that whole communication piece is like an extra layer because you alluded to all the technical problems that you have to face, but for you personally going from engineer to entrepreneur, that's a challenge in itself because suddenly you've got this extra hat to wear. So how have you found that navigating so far?
It's been a journey. I've been in this role for just under 2 years now. I graduated from Boston University's PhD program in 2022. And it's funny, I like to joke with people. I did biomedical engineering for my undergrad and then mechanical engineering for my PhD, but my thesis was predominantly actually more computer programming and computer engineering. So I feel like I've gotten used to wearing a few different hats, and being more in the entrepreneurship world now, it's a very different language sometimes, but it's exciting to sometimes take a step back from the lab bench and, talk with someone. I think that's the biggest difference is actually having conversations and understanding what motivates people in our space. And it's been a lot of fun having those types of conversations and getting to know people.
Well, you're certainly in the right place to be doing it. I mean, I think there's amazing tech we see all the time coming out of BU, and in general, of course, just being in Massachusetts, it is the home of medtech, we like to say. And I think with the ecosystem we have around us, everyone listening knows very well that this is a fantastic place to take any startup from idea through to market. It makes me think how that, there's a long potential runway ahead, and there's going to be a few milestones along that runway to hit.
Yeah, yeah, nope, there's no doubt. And I'm especially excited to hear, when exactly this product will be ready for market. But Ryan, why don't you go ahead and help us understand, I guess, what do the next 6 to 12 to 18 months look like? What are you focused on with your business and your product? And what are some key milestones you're looking to achieve?
Yeah, absolutely. We are at a stage now where we are looking for clinical collaborators. We're trying to, I mentioned this briefly, but we're trying to conduct some early feasibility studies and validate our technology in humans. So clinical studies, but we also want to do economic impact studies. And so what I mean by that is take our technology, we know that it works in humans, and now we have an understanding for how much time we can save you for that human spine imaging. And so to understand at our clinical collaborators institution how much that time savings is going to impact them from an economic value standpoint. And so those are the two major studies that we're looking to add to our team so that we can conduct. We actually just submitted an IRB application to Boston Medical Center to start to answer some of those questions this year. So from a short-term goal, we want to generate our first human study results based on that IRB. And then moving forward, we want to expand that IRB to other institutions to start to publish on our technology and really start to generate some exciting results clinically at other institutions.
Yeah, we know that data is incredibly powerful and really important. But I want to go back to some comment you made actually during one of Richard's questions, and you kind of alluded to the fact that, hey, maybe your metapad might not give the best quality results, or maybe it's really hard to get the abdomen area right. I guess from like an imaging quality perspective and treating other parts of the body, is there focus on either further developing your technology to help improve performance from an image quality standpoint?
Yeah, there's really, signal to noise ratio is a cool metric, and it's only one of many for measuring image quality, but you can use it to translate to faster scans or higher resolution scans. And so there's really two ways you can go with it. So you could envision having state-of-the-art, super, super small resolution spine MRI. One of our slightly further out in terms of looking forward milestones is we're currently working on spine. We want to accelerate spine imaging. But we really see this metapad as something that can be translated to a portfolio of metapads. So a metapad for the wrist and shoulder, a metapad for the knee. These musculoskeletal regions that are not deep within the body that we can have a lot of impact on while we continue to improve our technology to hopefully image deeper structures. And so an MRI scanner is able to house between 5 and 7, sometimes less, sometimes more, depending on where you are, of these lenses, if you will. And these lenses allow you to take pictures of different anatomies in the body. And they're built in a way that it fits on the shoulder, or it cylindrically wraps around the knee. And so in the I shouldn't say far, but near to far future, somewhere in there, I'm envisioning a world where you have a portfolio of metapads that are compatible with each of the dedicated lenses, or coils as they call them in MRI, to image several of the anatomies that you're looking to do at your institution, whether that's spine, neck, higher up in the spine, shoulder, wrist, knee, all these different musculoskeletal regions.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That we might have gone a little bit further than that. 6 to 12 to 18 month time frame for these types of future milestones, but it's really, really cool to hear, the vision you have for the future of your metapad products and its capabilities. So just remarkable. But you know what? You can't do all this though on your own. You alluded to having some great people on your team, Richard. It's stuff that we always talk about, such an important part, if not the most important part to the success of a company. So let's hear it.
Yeah, it's all about the people. And Ryan, I guess, being a co-founder, there's obviously some other people involved. So can you talk a little bit more now about the background of the people who are currently involved in this?
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, I'm definitely blessed from the standpoint to have some really, really intelligent and dedicated people behind me. And there's Xin Zhang, who is actually my PhD advisor at Boston University. She's a mechanical engineering faculty. And Stefan Anderson, who are co-founders with me. Stefan is a radiologist at Boston Medical Center. And we have we have several engineers that are working in Shin's lab that help support our R&D efforts. And it's been incredible to rely on their clinical and metamaterial expertise to really continue to move our technology forward. As I try to shake hands and meet all kinds of people in the M2D2 space. And it's been, outside of our direct team, it's been incredible to have the support of so many of the mentors through the Impact program. It's been incredibly beneficial to me as I continue down this journey of growing into being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's a really solid foundation to have all the people around you. I mean, you think about growing your team, do you get a sense of, like, if I had to put you on the spot and think about who that next key hire would be, who's that next person you'd want to add to your team?
Yeah, I think the first thing that I'm focusing on is adding advisors to our company. We have a lot of really strong know-how from a clinical and from a metamaterial science standpoint, and adding somebody that has that business understanding of having translated technology out of the laboratory before, I think would be really instrumental for us. In terms of an engineering side, we're always looking for full-time engineers. I think in the space, electrical and mechanical engineering is incredibly valuable for what we're trying to build. And so adding another person like that would be instrumental for us.
Well, I think there's one thing getting advice, but the one thing I've known or from getting to know you through this process, Ryan, is the fact that you're so open to advice. And I think that's what makes a great entrepreneur, the ability, Kyle, to to listen. It's one mouth, 2 ears for a reason.
There's no doubt. And it's pretty interesting because, Ryan, you've had so many great insights and kind of, into where you came from, where you started, how you got all these different degrees. And now, here you are building and starting your first company, developing your first technology. I guess when you reflect back on your experiences so far, and while you're still very young in your career, there's still so many great reflection points that I'm sure you could share with our audience. What's maybe a couple reflection points or a couple tips that you would have to anyone who might be looking to start a medical device company and bring a medical device technology to market? What would you have to say to them?
It's a great question. There's a lot of things that I think about when I'm putting a pitch together or, just talking to somebody about the technology. I wanted to do this project because I really believe that the technology could be impactful. And I think if you have that belief from the jump, then, it really grounds you in why you're trying to do it. And to know, like, our metamaterial at the core of this metapad, I really think can have a lasting impact on MRI overall. And to be able to come back to that when, it's been long hours or a long week, I think really just knowing your why is huge. I think MRI itself, what motivates me is, I think anyone listening to this knows somebody who's had cancer in the past. My mom had cancer. She passed away because of cancer. And so, when you're putting together a pitch deck and you're thinking about, what can I tell about myself? I came across this, I had this epiphany moment. I was like, there's so many people in my family, my mom, my grandfather, who have needed this technology. And my mom wasn't able to really use it. She had a hard time going through the exam process. It's very claustrophobic. It's an anxiety-inducing procedure. It's loud, it's cramped, and a lot of people have to deal with that. And so, having that to support my belief in the technology, knowing that this technology could help a lot of people get in and out of the scanner faster, to have shorter exams so that you're not fidgeting, that you're not worried about all these loud noises going around you. If you could take that from 20 minutes to 10 minutes, that's huge for not just the hospital throughput standpoint that we've been talking about a lot, but people's well-being and having that less of an anxious moment while they're going through their healthcare. So I think those two things from a technology standpoint and just reflecting on the people in my life and my family who could have really benefited from this has been instrumental in, finding your why and that's really what I've fallen back on.
Yeah, I mean, clearly you truly believe in, more than anything, in your MetaPad and your technology and the impact it will make on patients. So, there's no doubt that it's probably really important that if you're going to start anything, you're going to start any company or bring any product to market, that can't be said enough, right? Because if you're just not passionate and you don't believe the way you do, you're right. There's going to be sleepless nights, late nights, times of discouragement, and what's going to get you through that, is truly believing in the outcomes it will produce. So, just remarkable. Richard, why don't you take us away here in the ending?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Ryan, as I sit and listen here, I'm just thinking that word impact. I mean, again, it's why we all get up every day, I think, in terms of like, the listeners to this show and, people who work in the medtech industry, we all want to transform the lives of patients. And normally we look to ask about vision, but I feel like you painted such an amazing vision there already by saying like, this is what you get up for every day and this is what you want to do. You want to impact patients' lives. And so we 100% can get behind that for sure. I just wonder now if you do think about the vision and you look ahead, like have you had a chance to think about like where the company in 5 years' time? Do you see like a potential acquirer for this technology in mind already?
We have our pie in the sky, of course. We're always thinking about what would be an ideal exit, right? I think this technology has a lot of different ways you can go with it. Like I said, we're really pushing this idea of accessories and MRI. But you could just as easily see it being integrated into the development pathways of the individual companies who are building these scanners overall. And that's the ultimate goal in terms of a seamless workflow, is having this integrated into the capital equipment already. And so from an acquisition standpoint, working with those large manufacturers is, of course, would be huge for us. And so, yeah, in terms of a vision down the road, perhaps that would be, sort of an acquisition exit for us. But, we're really trying to meet more clinicians and operations managers at institutions to really understand how our accessory technology can benefit them, even if we eventually run into somebody who is excited and interested and wants to acquire us. There are going to be institutions who can't afford to replace their MRI equipment because it's so expensive and because there's so much infrastructure needed. And so it may be that the accessories that we've started on down this path will be more useful to them. And so I don't want to lose that aspect of it. So we'll see. Like you said, every day is a new challenge.
It's super exciting though. I mean, like again, the fact that you have this indication of the spine you're focusing on, but again, I can just see this being applied in other areas. So, not just the existing high cost MRI, but we're seeing these now lower cost portable ones coming online as well. So you imagine how this could complement them in future to provide, better resolution potentially than, what they provide already. So super excited for what you're doing. Kyle, I can imagine there'll be a lot of people who want to get in touch with Ryan.
I mean, come on, people that want to work with him, that want to acquire this technology, that just want to learn more. Ryan, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so of course you could reach out via email. It's my first letter, my first name, McNaughton, my last name at primetaz.com. And you can follow us. We have a website. It's www.primetaz.com. And follow me on LinkedIn. I think either LinkedIn or email is the best way to get in touch with me. So, yeah.
Done and done. That inbox is going to be jam-packed.
Oh yeah, you heard it for sure. Yeah, well, Ryan, again, this has been an absolute pleasure getting you on the show. I'm sure we're going to have you back on at some point to give us an update on the Primetaz journey. So, of course, wishing you well, and thanks again for joining us.
Thank you both so much. I really appreciate it, Kyle. I really appreciate it, Richard. It's been a blast chatting with you. I'm really excited for the last few weeks of the Impact program this spring, and yeah, I just look forward to the next time we get to sit down and talk about some more exciting results.
That's fantastic, Ryan. Well, ladies and gentlemen, another huge thank you to Ryan Mcnaughton, CEO and co-founder of Primetaz. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the MedTech Impact Podcast. I'm Kyle Cruz.
And I'm Richard Meiklejohn. Until next time, keep innovating.